So, starting episode 11 with my housemate, Cassie Patman. Hello, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How was your day?
It was my first day without my housemates, so it was kind of...
Did you miss me?
I missed the group collectively.
Yeah, not me particularly though.
Didn't really miss like individuals, just missed having people around. So, yeah.
Okay. I asked Nikita this as well, which is one of our other housemates. What's it like having a Scottish man in the house?
Oh, that's a general question. It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
Like a 4 out of 10.
Like you as an individual. That's a different question.
Me as an individual, 4 out of 10. Cool. Awesome, I'm glad to hear it.
What did Nikita say?
Said it was interesting. We started talking about the differences in culture and different words for things. Kitchen roll is what we discussed.
Yeah.
And how you guys just, what does you call it again? Paper towels?
Paper towel.
Yeah.
It's funny when you bring, like, very red before.
Yeah. Never tried that before.
Things you don't really think about.
Yeah. There's like, it's weird because it's very similar in culture in terms of,
Yeah, like
I
Western
think,
culture.
No, like UK specifically though.
Yeah.
I've always found the people I get along with most when I'm traveling is either Irish, Aussie, or other people from the UK.
Yeah.
Have you found the same?
Yeah. I guess like we're descendants from there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Convicts came over.
Yeah,
A
I
little
guess
bit
so.
in us.
Because you were in Europe not too long ago.
Last year.
Which is like the white girl trip for Australia, right?
It really is. My soul searching.
Like your Europe is our Australia, I think.
Yeah. And like your Spain is like our Bali.
Yeah, which is wild to think. Have you been to Bali before?
No. It's like a rite of passage for Aussies. And
Yeah.
I've never done it.
I'm honestly, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
Yeah.
I was there with
It's
two.
cheap. That's why people go.
Yeah. I wouldn't have it. If you've got the choice between that and Vietnam or
Bali,
Thailand or something.
Bali and Thailand are the ones that people...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
Mate, a bunch
Aussie.
of drunk Aussies while I was there, to be fair. These aren't hard to mess up. All right. Anyways, enough of our shit chat. Wanted to get into what you do as an ambition, as a career, as a pursuit. What is it you do? Tell me.
I am an actor.
An actor or an actress? What's the difference?
I guess it's just the gender title, but I don't really care if someone calls me an actor or an actress, but...
Do you have a preferred one?
Well, the way I see it is whether you're male or a female, you're a doctor. You don't become a doctoress. I don't know. That's just how I've always seen it. It might be a stupid comment, but...
Is it like on a... Is it demeaning at all if someone calls you an actress? Or is it literally just the feminine version of an actor?
Yeah, I think I just say it to annoy people. I'm not an actress, I'm an actor.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for?
I guess like professionally, if you can call it that. I finished a course in 2019 and that's when I got my agent. But I don't know, since school, I was doing school plays and then I studied it, and then ever since then I've just been doing it as a bit of a side thing.
Okay.
To make it something more. So
Okay. And what's the dream with it? Where do you want to go?
I'd like to be able to support myself doing that. I'd like to not have to consider it after I finish my work.
You'd want that to be the work itself.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a second full-time job sometimes. You finish your 7 till 3, 9 to 5, and then you have to come home and start your day again and start your next job, which is fine. I wouldn't have it any other way, but
if you were to have your way,
if I was to have it another way,
it'd be the full-time job.
So, yeah.
So, do you often have auditions after you finish work? How often are you auditioning for things?
I mean, it's so infrequent. Like, you couldn't say it's every 2 weeks. There's been months where I've had 4 auditions, and then you can go 4 months without getting an audition. So that's why they say a big part of it is to create your own work and to do your own stuff. Like, just before, I was looking up scripts that I can just film at home to practice and put out there. And
talk more about create your own work. Like, how do you go about that? You upload stuff to YouTube? How do you make that happen?
However you want to do it, like collaborating with other people, or if you've got the writing skills to create stuff. There's so many different avenues you can go down these days, like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Vimeo. Like, there's so many places you can do it. And yeah, there is a lot of people out there that work in the film industry, but it is a hard career to crack. So one of the big things they teach you in school is to create your own work, and then you can create roles that you want to do. Like I've done auditions for parts that like it's just shit. I can swear, can't I?
Yeah, you can swear as much as you want. My mum and dad actually listened to the podcast and they said I swear too much on it.
You've been in Australia too long.
Yeah, mum and dad, I'm sorry. I'll try better.
But yeah, like I've had auditions where you read it and you're like, this is just garbage. Like I can't believe they're funding this. So when you're creating your own stuff, you can write it however you want. You can be whoever you want. So.
Have you wrote your own script before?
I've written scenes for classes before. Nothing that is amazing. But I've got some ideas. I'm not very good at putting the pen to paper.
Can you talk me through any of the ideas that are in your head?
So I've got a couple at the moment. There's one which my friend was off her face the other night at a festival, and she was saying how much she loved it. And I was like, you're not in the right state right now.
Right, let's go. Right, pretend I am. I don't know. Who do you sell these to? Producers?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a producer for. Is it a movie or a TV show?
It's a movie. Oh, I guess that could be a TV show. That could be kind of cool.
Movie/TV show.
Yeah.
Sell it to me. Pitch me.
Well, it's a story about a girl who, she's young, say my age, and she's got all these things that she wants to do. She wants to travel the world and see all these places, and she's finally booked her ticket, and then she finds out she's pregnant. Okay. But she doesn't want to give up the baby. Well, she's not sure. But she also doesn't want to give up on the dream of the traveling. Basically, I was in Pompeii, and I had a really big lunch, and I walked past my reflection.
Thought you were pregnant?
I was like, it's a bit of a baby bump going on. And I just, started thinking like, shit, what if I was pregnant on this trip? Like, what would I do different? How would I go about it? And it's just a story of someone.
So she does both? Yeah,
she keeps I don't know, I haven't really thought about the ending, but she at least starts traveling while having a baby and, dealing with morning sickness and no one really knows. And
I think that'd be really interesting. I'm imagining actually being in a hostel and then someone comes in and they're 5 months pregnant. Yeah,
and like obviously traveling, not for everyone, but drinking is a big part of that culture, and then not being able to do that, and I don't know, I think there's something there. So.
I think there's something there as well. I could see that as being something popular.
She was like, we have to get you funding. I was like, okay, settle down. Like, let me get some ideas written down first.
So if you were taking an idea like that, realistically, talk me through the steps that you would have to take to make that a real production.
I don't know. Personally, I'd have to find someone to collaborate with because I can't hack the writing side of it. I mean, I've never gotten it from that stage to an end stage.
Do you reckon if your life depended on it, you could?
Oh, for sure. It might not be quality, but
yeah, you can make it happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I would start by just contacting people within my network. I've got friends who are directors and writers and producers, and they just help around sets and stuff, just people in the industry. So that's how I'd at least start that. It's not a short process. It can take quite a time to get from start to finish.
So yeah, you would have to write out a script first.
Well, you could do I can't even remember what they call it. Starts with a T. The word is lost, but
describe it to me. A test run?
Oh, I can tell you. Wait, 1 second, sorry. What's the word called?
I'll talk nonsense
Just
into
talk nonsense,
into the mic until you find this. Yeah, I've thought about doing screenwriting before because I think it would be something that I'd love to do.
Yeah.
As write some sort of TV show or some sort of movie.
Do you have any ideas?
No.
No?
I have a feeling that it's something I'd be somewhat good at. But then I remember watching Seinfeld after I had this thought in my head.
Director's treatment, that's the word.
Director's treatment.
Yeah, so that would be like a breakdown of maybe how you see it with like the cinematography and the vibe you're going for, kind of like a Pinterest board.
Okay, so a mood board for what the movie's going to be like.
Yeah, that could be a place to start.
Okay. Talk me through specifically the mood board part of it. If you're going to talk how the movie's filmed, would you base that on certain directors and how they
take like screen grabs from movies that inspire you?
Okay.
Like Greta Gerwig might be a influence that you want to.
Who?
Greta Gerwig. She's a director. Lady Bird. in the Barbie movie.
The Lady Bird, wasn't a massive fan.
I watched it last night. I really liked it. I really liked it.
What is it you liked about Lady Bird?
I just thought it was a realistic story. I don't know, just like the relationship with the mother. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It'd be really cheesy. Like some of it I was a bit like, yeah, it's a bit wanky, but
yeah, that's what I find. A lot of the movies, they make the dialogue really strange.
Yeah.
And like a little bit pretentious, and I found that to be the case with Lady Bird. I'm trying to think of another example, but yeah.
I think the key is to just start. Like there's websites you can use that have templates for scripts and break it down exactly with like where the headings should be and interior and exterior stuff. But yeah, just start.
Do you reckon that would be your breakthrough movie? So I remember reading about, I think it was Sylvester Stallone in the Rocky movies.
Yeah.
He wrote that script for himself and then just pushed it through until he made it happen.
Pretty cool, hey?
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Do a lot of actors break through that way, or is the majority breaking through just within rules?
I think just within roles. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rules, but a lot of the stories I know just through roles. And
do you know anyone personally that's maybe further up the rung within the industry?
I mean, I've got actor friends who are doing other stuff rather than acting. Like I've got friends who are runners on shows and assistants, and I don't know, it's kind of like, it's like life. There's just always different routes in, and it is a big who you know industry. Not, I mean, what you know is definitely important, and like talent's important, but I mean, that nepotism article just came out about all the nepotism babies in Hollywood.
Really?
Did you not see that? Variety did like a massive spread on all the nepotism babies.
Any particular names come to mind?
Oh, like Lily Rose Depp, Gwyneth Paltrow. It was heaps of them. It was a really cool cover as well. It was all their faces photoshopped onto babies. And it was just talking about how they got their start, and how, like, there's a lot out there that you don't realize are nepotism babies, but maybe they had an uncle that worked in the industry, or
I guess it makes sense though.
Oh yeah.
If you had a family that was already within the industry and you wanted to do it, it's the best route, and you're not going to be like, I'm going to go outside of this and just not tell them I'm connected at all.
But then that's also an interesting way to do it, to prove to yourself that you could do it without them.
Yeah, I think that would show a lot of courage and a lot of virtue.
Yeah.
If you did manage it that way, but I think it's something we're yet to see.
If you've got a little bit of a boost, why wouldn't you take it?
Yeah, I think most of us would. I don't think it's particularly bad. I don't blame nepotism babies for using that advantage as long as they're honest about it.
Yeah.
And I think a few of them are. I think a few of them have came out and been like, obviously, my dad's a famous actor.
Jamie Lee Curtis, because her mum is Marion in Psycho.
Okay.
And so she's a nepotism baby, but she's always been honest about it. She was talking about an audition. It might have even been for Halloween when she was younger, and how it came down to her and a final girl, and she got it, and she knows it's because of who her mum was. Her mum was a scream queen herself, and she's very aware. Yeah, that gives her a boost in life, but of course she's honest about it. So,
and I think that's the only way to come about it. Is I think actors can come around in one or two ways. Some of them seem really authentic and transparent, and some of them seem exactly the opposite, and you think they're very pretentious or out of touch. Yeah. Remember, what was the video around, was it COVID?
Imagine.
Yeah. It was singing Imagine by John Lennon.
Yeah, Gal Gadot and all the celebrities in it. Yeah.
So it's so hard. It must be really difficult for you to remain in touch when you are that massive of a celebrity. Yeah. Because you can't go about a normal life.
No, absolutely not.
Do you reckon you would enjoy the fame?
No. Maybe some of the benefits. I'm not gonna.
Is there a certain level of fame that you would enjoy?
I don't know. I've always said I'd wanted to be an unproblematic celebrity, someone like Paul Rudd. Everyone loves him. You're never seeing him in the tabloids.
Do you not think you would get recognised too much in public though? Paul Rudd's a big enough of a face that you couldn't go for a coffee on a Sunday morning without people bothering you.
Yeah, that would get quite tiring quite fast.
I think having a niche face within a niche industry. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a TV show that's maybe not massive but does really well. I don't know. Would people always recognise the Always Sunny characters?
Oh, maybe not here.
Would people, if Dennis was walking down the street, I wouldn't say the majority of people. He's pretty generic. People wouldn't recognise him. He would hate that as well, Dennis.
Yeah, I don't think obviously there's benefits to fame. Like, there's an upper hand in life, but it's not something I want. I don't want to be famous. I just want to make a living doing what I love and telling stories.
What is it about acting that makes you want to do it? Why do you think that you're specifically pulled towards that?
I don't know, because sometimes I wish I wasn't. Like, it's a frustrating career to want, because it's not like you're doing a degree where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and you know, okay, just get to the end of my 4 years and I can start my career. Like, I could be hustling for the next 20 years before something lands. And that's a really confronting thing to realize, especially when you see your friends going up the career ladder in their jobs already. But unfortunately, there is nothing else I want to do. I see it as a bit of an escape. Telling stories, especially stories that mean something. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I've always used movies as my escape from reality when I don't want to, hang out with my thoughts. It's a good way to, just escape the world for a little while and sit down for 2 hours and not think. And so I love going to the movies. You don't check your phone for 2 hours. You don't know what's going on in the world. You're just there with the story in front of you. So
that's the best sort of movies, where you do completely escape.
Yeah.
And you're completely detached.
Yeah. And like
from reality for 2 hours.
Like it goes for 30 seconds.
So part of the actual acting itself comes from an escapism as well? Or does it come from the love of the craft?
I think a bit of both. I think growing up...
That's what I was going to ask, actually. So what initially attracted you to it?
Well, if you don't know this already, I'm quite an outgoing person.
Yeah, very.
I'm an only child. But, I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a cook. I wanted to be a police officer and all those things. And then I realised that being an actor, you can be anything. Like, you can wake up one day and you're playing a doctor on a crime show, and then, like, the next day you're an attorney in court. And I don't know, you can be anything in any world, and I think that's really cool.
That is pretty awesome that you can, I guess, be different roles in life that you maybe always dreamed of.
Yeah, you kind of get to try them without the commitment of...
What kind of actor are you? Are you a Heath Ledger, Joker, very much... What are they called again?
Like a method actor.
Method actor, that's it.
No, not at all.
No, you're not getting in the zone.
I think, like, if I had a part where it required a skill, I'd learn the skill and try and immerse myself in that. Or, like...
Have you ever heard that? Because I've heard the phrase always lie.
Always lie.
In terms of, if someone asks, can you ride a
do
horse?
this? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Though I have seen that in, like, movies and films and stuff.
Yeah. Is that ever something you've done in real life?
No. Like, when I get auditions, we use 2 platforms in Australia called Casting Networks and Showcast, and I'll get an email from my agent through that website. So a casting director will upload the slates and they'll pick people's headshots from there, and that's when I get notified. But on my profile has heaps of skills that you can tick. Like, I can sing, I can dance, I can hula hoop. And there's a couple on there that I'm...
What are the borderline ones? That's the one I want. That's the ones I want to hear.
Can't do amazingly. I think I've got archery on there.
Lovely.
Because I did it at school camp a couple of times.
I mean, if you picked up a bow and arrow, you could probably manage it.
I've had mixed things from teachers before where they're like, if you can't do it, don't tick it. And then other teachers are like, well, maybe you're not trained in dancing, but you go out on the weekends, you know how to...
Yeah, you know how to boogie.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a fine line.
What do you have to educate yourself on most to put yourself in the best possible position to succeed in this role? We talked about how it was very much about who you know in the industry, but in terms of talent, it's an ongoing education for you. How do you get to the point where you're, like, properly progressing the most? I
mean, there's classes. That's a major thing. And then there's just scene workouts, so... practicing, because there's a lot of different aspects, like you've got your voice aspect, your movement, your memorizing lines. I think just being aware of the world is a very important aspect to it as well.
What do you mean by that?
Just people. Like, acting is telling the truth and telling a story. So if you just take observations of the world around you, like, you are learning, the more you watch people, the more you're taking in, and you might pick up little traits of a person. You're like, wow, that would be Like, that's a bit of a weird walk, but that would work really well for this character that I'm doing.
Is that something you notice on a daily when you're walking around?
Very observant person, yeah.
Yeah.
Food courts are a great place to people watch as well. And just like being aware of current events. So in one of the courses I've done, a big part of our script work that we would do would be to look at the context of the time. So looking for clues. It's a puzzle. Like, it's so much fun breaking down a script and finding all of the information that's not there. So they might make, make mention of what year it is. And you're like, hey, cool, it's 2002. What's just happened? Well, it's an American-based script. It's the year after 9/11. Maybe it's set in New York, you know? There's 3 clues already as to how...
So that would maybe change the tonality of how you speak or how you reference certain things?
Just the context of the story and what's going on below the words, you know, and in between. It's all about what's in between the lines that you're trying to figure out. So,
and is that something that you've become better at over time?
It's something you have to consistently practice with. And I haven't really done it in a while, you know, summer holidays and settling into the new house. But yeah, it's something you do when you get a new script. It's called the 8 Steps. It's Howard Fine, which was the last school I went to. He's an acting coach in LA, and it's his method of approaching.
Do you know the 8 steps off by heart?
Oh, I shouldn't I? No, I don't.
So this is, what are the 8 steps in reference to?
It's just about like who you are, what you are, where you are. It's just like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I've done 10 pages on a 2-page script before.
Okay.
About my character and who they are.
And how does that actually manifest into your acting? Does it manifest in your body language and how you project your voice? What particularly?
It's the kind of work where you do it and then you just kind of forget about it. And then you just let it sit in your body. And yeah, it'll come out in your speech and it might come out in the way you move and the way you respond to things. So it's all this groundwork, and then, you know, you've learnt your lines and you just kind of hope that it's sitting in there subconsciously. Because from our day-to-day life, you know, there's everything that's ever happened in my life is affecting how I'm acting in this moment right now. You know?
True.
So...
But at this point, you're not playing a different character. You're only being yourself.
But when you're not playing a character, you're trying to find the character in you. So you're trying to embody the character when you're reading a script, and you're trying to become that person.
So do you actually feel as if you are that character when you're playing them? Does that feel right?
I try and find ways to relate to the character.
Okay.
So maybe the character is furious and wants to kill someone. I've never physically killed someone. I've never been that angry. I'm coming close with you. But try and find an experience that I've had that makes me that angry. And it might not be to the same extent, but finding anger within myself that I can then use. I don't even know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So using your own experiences to try relate more completely to that character.
It might not be a direct relation, but to understand what's getting them to that level of emotion.
Has there ever been a character that you've portrayed or thought about portraying that's been the most vivid in your head that you can relate to the most? That you've been in their lines and thought, I am that character? Yeah,
it was only an audition that I did. It was a student film. I remember it was like a 5-minute monologue of just me talking. But it was someone breaking up with their partner. And I can't even remember what the lines were. I can't remember how I was in a relationship at the time. I didn't want to break up with my boyfriend. But I remember showing him the video and he was like, we've had that conversation before. Like, that is not acting. That's actually you just talking.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know, going back into past conversations I'd had and remembering how it felt in those moments and trying to bring that into the scene. And I didn't get the part because when I got my call back, I messed up one line.
Oh, nightmare.
5-minute monologue.
Nightmare.
That's right.
What's the ideal situation for an acting role? Is it being able to relate the most to that character? Like, what do you reckon would be the most fulfilling in terms of a role?
Not necessarily, because I think it's very interesting to learn how different people think. I mean, you want to find relation to every character, no matter how small. I don't know if relating the most would be the most fulfilling, because it's not going to feel like a challenge then. Like so
do you reckon the biggest challenge is the most fulfilling if you manage to overcome it?
For myself, personally, because guess you feel like you've accomplished something.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's easy to act as yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not as challenging. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, there is something nice about being able to just drop into a character. Like, I did a short film recently, and it was about 3 girls in a share house trying to find their 4th housemate. And it was while we were trying to
went
find
through
you.
the exact same situation.
And I remember like reading the script, and I was like, they're watching me. They've stolen my life. And like, that was nice. That was a fun film to do because it was so easy to just like slip into it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't know, there's benefits to both. It just depends. It also depends on who you're working with, what the director's like, what the script itself is like. There's so many different aspects to it.
What are other actors like to act with? Are they dramatic?
Depending. I've worked with a range of different people.
But do they occupy any particular stereotypes?
What do you mean? Like,
so you might say baristas are typically people with beanies and they're very hipster. Are actors any particular type of way that you've noticed there's a commonality across? I mean, in general, I'm not talking every one of them, but in general.
I mean, they're always a bit more outgoing.
Yeah.
A bit more confident. But no, for the most part, lovely. Like, always welcoming, always networking, you know, trying to chat to you, find out what you've been doing. I've never really met anyone who gets jealous. Everyone's always really happy for whatever you're up to at the moment. You know, like a friend might get a part and you're like, shit, I really wanted that. But you're just happy.
You're happy for them as well. And that's quite common across all?
For the most part that I've met. Like, you do realise a lot of the time as well, it's not even that you're not talented, it's that you don't fit the role. So they might be casting, like, I've gone up for parts where my friends have also gone up for them, and they may have already cast the male and they need him to be taller and I'm taller than him. So maybe I'm the most talented, but I just don't physically fit the role.
Got you.
And that's another thing they teach you in school, is not to be so hard on yourself, because there's so many factors that come into it that don't even consider you.
They might have blue eyes in the script. You don't have blue eyes.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. Yeah.
So, I think within the acting industry, there's a lot of love, which I've noticed and I really enjoy.
That's not what I expected.
No.
To be honest, like, from the outside looking in, I would have thought that the acting industry would be very dog-eat-dog world.
No. Not at
Everyone
all.
eats themselves if you don't get it.
Not at all. It's a very supportive and welcoming community.
What about, so that's the actors themselves. What about directors and producers and agents? Because the stereotype for them, I mean, not directors, but agents and stuff, is they're a bit more seedy.
I mean, I've only had the one agent, so I'm with Rob Woodburn. He's in Sydney.
Shout out Rob Woodburn.
RWA. And I mean, he's been great. I've been with him since 2019.
Okay.
It is a little bit hard because he's Sydney based and I'm in Melbourne, so a lot of his clients are up there. But with the internet, you know, you can audition from anywhere, which is amazing. I've never really had issues with agents. I've heard some bad stories, but for the most part, I think the movies make it look a little bit more dramatic. It might be different in the States, but here it's not bad. Directors can be interesting. I've done a lot of student films where you get a group of people who have just been put together rather than knowing they work well together. And that can be very interesting to watch how they all interact. And I mean, when you're on set, it can be very stressful. Nothing ever works out to plan. It always goes over. I've done 8-hour shoots that have turned into 13-hour shoots. And, you know, they can't get one light sitting correctly and it's casting a shadow or something like that. So it's been a big learning experience watching how people work and realising how important it is to work with people that you can work with and can openly communicate with, because that's a massive thing, especially on
The
set.
communication.
Yeah, like I remember I was doing this film and we were shooting in a stairwell, so awkward for shots and, you know, trying to get booms in and lights. And the director was just screaming at one of the other people that was in the crew. And then us actors were just kind of standing at the top waiting, and we don't know each other. We don't know them. It's a student film. We've only been on set for a day, and it was just so uncomfortable. And everyone I've spoken to since that shoot I've stayed friends with some of the crew. They were all like, yeah, no, she was horrible to work with. Like, I'd never want to work with her again.
Damn.
Yeah.
Do you reckon you get ostracised pretty quickly if you're that type of director?
Oh, for sure.
Or that type of actor, at least?
It's such a small industry. Such a small industry. So
would you say you know a lot of the actors within Melbourne?
Yes and no. I tend to, like, if I'm working with a new actor, you know, you follow each other on Instagram. You're like, oh, how do you know this person? Like, there'll be heaps of mutuals. Yeah, I mean, there's heaps of schools around, but I'm definitely meeting more people that know more people. And I don't know, it's getting smaller and smaller the further I go into it. So,
I mean, you said networking's a big part of it as well.
yeah.
So it's good that you have that
Oh, for sure.
community that are kind of going to... Do you ever get put onto roles by other people you know within the acting community? Maybe they get told about it from their agent and they say to you, oh, you'd be great for this?
Well, I did a internal shoe thing recently, the ad campaign, and that was purely from word of mouth. They just... I got an email from someone I knew from an acting school. She was like, hey, you free this week? Can you come and shoot? No audition, nothing. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And that's leading to other things at the moment, which are in
The
talks.
shoe commercials leading to something else?
Possibly.
Okay. Director's got a foot fetish.
Yeah.
He's just like, the feet were great. We loved it. We loved
I
it.
hope Nick watches this one day.
So the shoe commercial led something else. Have you found that other roles that you've done have led to more roles? Is that how it works at compounds?
For sure. Like, even, not even roles, but some of my best friends now, like, that shoot I did with the director, who will not be named, but was hard to work with. One of my best friends now was crew on that.
Okay.
I've helped crew on her films, and we're talking about stuff we want to do together, and she's introduced me to people, and she works with Birdie, who's friends with Nikita's boyfriend. And
Okay.
Like, yeah.
It's full circle, yeah.
So.
Awesome. One thing I wanted to ask is how you end up doing accents.
Yeah.
Because I am notoriously terrible at accents. I'm just shocking I can't do them. So, did you grow up knowing how to do other accents, or is that something you get vocal coaching on?
It's vocal coaching. I think a lot of people think they can do an accent, but it's mimicking rather than actually doing the accent.
What's the difference?
Well, mimicking is just like copying, whereas when you want to do the accent, there's things you have to change in your throat, and there's ways to move your tongue around, and words sit differently in your throat.
And do they teach you how to manipulate like your throat and your tongue to make that
and there's
specific
like breathing
accent?
exercises to do, and there's words to drop into. Like, for instance, Americans speak a lot at the back of their throat, whereas Australians are very at the front of their mouth. So it's about training yourself to bring it to the back. And there's certain, you know, letters you want to emphasize and pacing you want to do. And Australians use more vowels, as you consistently tell me.
On everything. So that must be really difficult to do, because it's one of those things that it's really hard to feel where certain things are in your throat and where they are in your tongue.
Yeah.
That proprioception must be really difficult to kind of decipher.
It's hard because, you know, you speak with your normal voice, and actually, yeah, so Australians are very lazy in their speech, right?
Okay.
But we have it quite easy because you kind of build on that to get to other accents. Whereas I've heard Americans, for instance, they already speak at their bare minimum. To them, that's just them being lazy. That's their talking. But an Australian accent is lazier. So then they have to train themselves to get lazier with their speaking.
I don't understand what does lazier mean in terms of an accent? How does that manifest?
I don't know. Like, we've talked about accents before, and how
I know, like, it blows my mind that accents even exist in the first
wild,
place.
isn't it?
Like, how were you just born in a different place and then all of the people around you sound a certain
There's a really
way?
interesting podcast. I can't remember.
Apart from this interesting one that we're doing just now.
There's a second best podcast. I can't remember who it was being interviewed. I want to say it was someone like Gary Oldman or Willem Dafoe, someone like that. And they were talking about how much impacts an accent, like topography. That's the word? Topography?
I think so.
Yeah, like the land. Like, there's so many different things. The weather can impact an accent. Like in America, for instance, the southern drawl, it's so hot there. So it's like a lot less effort is going into their speaking. Like, there's so many different factors. But I find accents wild.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
something I'm working on as well. I've done General American as a class, but unless you're consistently practicing, it is quite hard to...
And I can imagine that's probably a pretty big factor to whether you get a role or not, because there must be hundreds of roles advertised every day. What's the makeup of the ratio of the different accents you see advertised for? Are they primarily American or British?
If I'm just doing stuff locally within Melbourne, obviously Australian, like short films and stuff, a lot of the stuff that comes through Rob, especially if it's for networks like Netflix and, you know, all those big companies, a lot of them will be in American. But they just are happy with a standard American accent. So, you know, you've got your general American, which is very Californian.
Okay.
And then, you know, you can always break off into, you know, your Boston, your New York, your Chicago. Like
And you could do the difference between that?
God, no. I'm a general American.
Okay.
But I've got friends, like you've met Daniela. She loves voice work. She wants to do voiceover work as her career. That's her dream. And she's really good at accents. So
I find it really impressive.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by it. But like you can even watch some of the biggest stars, like Australians who have made it in Hollywood, and you know, big time.
Who are the biggest Australians that are in Hollywood?
At the moment?
Eric Bana?
I mean, he's up there.
Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman, Margot Robbie, Nicole Kidman,
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth. There's a lot of Australian talent out there.
Yeah. I feel as if Chris Hemsworth's always playing an Aussie.
Yeah, he's just playing himself.
Yeah.
But it works for him.
Yeah, it does.
He's happy, so...
Margot Robbie, though, she's quite often American, is she not, in different movies?
Yeah. Or British. She's played British in a few films. But she's one of those people, like, she's obviously incredible, but I guess I listen. And I can sometimes hear, like, little cracks of Australian in her voice. But that's only because I'm so, like, intent on hearing it. Nicole Kidman is another one that I sometimes can hear the Aussie come through.
Here's one thing I was thinking is, what things have you taken from acting and then maybe learn from and applied to real life? So you talked about your perception earlier in terms of you notice things about how people act and stuff like that. Yeah. Is there anything else that you think, how has acting benefited you outside of acting itself?
I think voice stuff's it's been very interesting. I did a class last year, oh my God, the year before, and talking about anxieties coming through in speech.
Yeah.
So people will rush through speech when they're really nervous, and same if an actor's nervous, you'll see they'll just rush through the script trying to get to the end, and like stuttering on words. I think that's one thing about just like slowing down and really taking your time with the thought that you're trying to get across.
As you were doing just now.
As I was just trying to do. What was the question? What have I taken from it?
Yeah, so in what ways has acting benefited you in everyday life?
I mean, I've met some of my best friends through that. So, you know, yeah, you start with this common love, but, you know, you discover that you love other things as well. Nikita, this house, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for acting. I only went to Sugar Mountain because Bertie, my acting friend, was going. He was like, why don't you come along?
Really?
So I went with another acting friend, Star, and met Nikita, and now we're here doing this podcast, and I live with you. And I think the biggest thing I've taken from acting would be the friendships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think your acting friends are different from your other friends in any way?
No, not necessarily.
Do you go and do acting things together?
Sometimes, with some of them. Like Daniela, she's going to come over tomorrow. We're going to go through some scripts together, try and find some scenes. It's nice having acting friends. Like if I have an audition and someone needs to read lines on the other side, it's nice to have acting friends to go to.
I mean, I have volunteered as tribute, but I've been told that I'm not allowed, apparently.
Not with that one.
Even though I give you a terrible accent, like, I would try my best. But there's something for me, there's something quite nerve-wracking about acting because you're really putting yourself out there.
See, I don't see it that way. I'm not putting Cassie out there.
True, but you know what it is? For me, to be an actor, you need to be able to not take yourself so seriously.
I mean, that's a big thing, like letting go.
Yeah.
Trusting the process.
And that's something I think I would struggle with most.
Well, that's the benefit of classes, I guess, is everyone's there for the same reason. So you kind of have a mutual cone of silence of trust. And I've seen people open up about the darkest things ever. They're like, obviously not going to repeat, but you know, even I was sitting there in class and I was like, oh God, like this is getting deep. But they're in a place where they feel comfortable and they feel trusted, and you can fail.
Would you say there's a more comfortable environment around, say, example, a studio or something? Like, is there a certain, a horrible word to describe this, but aura, a certain feel to it?
I think if you're all working towards a common goal to make the best piece of art you can, then people kind of let go of their egos, which is nice. I mean, some people still have their egos.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you put aside any biases you have and thoughts towards things because you just realize you're working towards this common goal of making the best piece you possibly can. And those are my favorite people to work with. Like, I'm open to criticism if it's going to benefit the art, you know?
Yeah.
If I'm not doing something correctly, if there's something you're not getting from me as a director, say it to me in a way that means we're working towards the best thing we can create.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah. I think
that must be hard to accept when you're putting your all into a role and then told, oh, it's not good enough or it has to be changed in that way. It takes quite a lot of humility to be able to accept that and apply that.
Trust that they know what they're doing, I guess.
Okay.
Like, you know, we could be shooting a scene right now.
I mean, we're shooting a podcast right now.
Podcast.
But we're not acting.
But from the other side of that camera, they're getting a different view. So you have to trust that what they're seeing through the camera is working, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. With all of this talk, for me, the podcast and like try to build the cold brew business, it's very much in tune with what I want to do, and I know exactly where I want to take it. So I'm just kind of curious, like, where is the ideal role, or is there any actresses or actors that you think that's exactly the space that you'd want to be in terms of the roles you're doing and how you conduct yourself?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's people that you watch and you're like, wow, what an amazing career, especially when it happens in such a short amount of time. Like Florence Pugh, for instance, she's been working for years, but look at her, like, at the moment, she's only just turned, I don't know, she's like mid-20s, close to late 20s, like only a couple of years older than me, and just looking at how much she's been able to achieve, it's pretty incredible. I don't think there's a career that I'd want. Like, there's no one I've watched and thought, you've done exactly what I want to do, because I don't know what I want to do.
If you were to pick anything just now,
I mean,
would it be A24 films?
I want to be in an A24 film. Yeah. That would be amazing.
That's the move,
I'd
right?
like to be in a movie that just matters.
Yeah.
Like, not that...
I think what we talked about earlier is movies that make you feel something and you get completely enamored by for that space of 2 hours.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. And whether that's, you know, a local film where 10 people watch it and they love it, but they feel something.
Yeah.
Or a Hollywood blockbuster where millions of people watch it and they feel something. Like, I just want to be doing something that matters and makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to feel as if life's got a purpose and you're not wasting your time. I guess it manifests differently.
I also just want to have fun, though.
That strikes me as like something you get from acting as well. It does seem like a really, really fun job.
I mean, it can be. It can also be like accessing parts of yourself you don't want to access, and it can be tiring and long days and painful, and you know, you miss out on a lot of things because you've got commitments, and you know, dinners you can't go to because shoots go over time, and birthdays you miss because you've scheduled in shoots. But
is that pretty common as well?
I mean, depending on the level you're at, not so much where I'm at, but you know, if you're a big Hollywood star and you're away for 6 months of the year shooting films, you're going to be missing a lot of life, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, like, look at someone like Adam Sandler. He just takes all his best friends and makes, like, average comedies. They're enjoyable. They're popcorn flicks. And travels the world and just has the best time. Like, his wife's always in them. His best friends. Like, what was that movie with Jennifer Aniston that was, like, on a boat in Morocco or something? No, Monaco?
I have no idea.
I can't remember what it was called. But, like, that would be awesome. Like,
yeah, it'd be a good way of doing things. I think a lot of actors get to a certain stage in their career when they can just do what they want.
Yeah.
I think Seth Rogen's at that point now.
Sure.
He's done so much that he's producing and directing. Fun. Yeah, he's just doing what he wants.
Yeah, doing it for the love of it.
Jonah Hill, he's at that stage. We watched a little bit of Stutz, but we didn't finish it. It was heavy. I'd be keen to finish it though. What do you reckon, from an outside perspective and from an inside perspective for you, what's the most important part of a movie to get right?
Oh, so that's a hard question. There's so many aspects.
But what would you, if something was done wrong, what would you notice most of all?
Dialogue, personally.
That's what I was going to say.
I mean, I'm a big stickler for continuity.
Okay.
Like, I will notice when, I don't know, if like a shot changes or like even, what was I watching? Oh, Triangle of Sadness. Mm-hmm. I just, you know, the lady, oh, I don't want to spoil this for anyone. Spoiler alert. Right,
if you're going to watch Triangle of Sadness and you've not seen it yet, don't listen to the next minute.
But you know the lady who only has one hand?
Okay, so but there, let's try to give them a little bit of context. So there's this movie, Triangle of Sadness. They're on this boat. There's too much to explain, but there's basically this woman that's had a stroke and she's got one hand.
And in one scene, it was her right hand was the one she couldn't use.
Yeah.
And her left hand. I remember she picked up a glass of wine, she took a sip with it. And then later in the movie, it was the other hand.
Oh, okay, so
and like,
she actually switched hands?
Yeah, and like it's nothing to do with the story. It might have been that they had to flip the camera to make the scene work or something like that, but it just took me out of it. And I remember sitting there thinking, fuck, I'm not in the movie anymore. Like I'm thinking about that.
Damn,
so for me personally, continuity is a massive thing. Or if someone's like hair changes or a scarf changes or a colour changes.
So that's attention to detail is what that is, right?
But that's just me being a nitpicker.
No, I get that as well. I mean, we talked about the escapism thing of it, and I think that's what most people use TV shows and movies for.
It'll break the reality in my...
Do you think that movies and TV shows as an entertainment medium can be overutilized to the point where you're maybe escaping your own life too much?
Absolutely. And I've done that before.
Yeah.
You know.
Binge watch a TV show to just forget about life for a bit.
Yeah, or procrastinate or avoid a conversation you're trying to have. Or, I mean, I've gone to the movies to avoid conversations because you put your phone on airplane mode and
you're
not going to get any notifications. So, yeah, definitely, I think. But that's the same as anything. As long as you're doing it within a healthy way. Like.
Yeah. Most things, to be fair.
Yeah.
Do you reckon there's a objective good movie and TV show? Like, a lot of movies and TV shows, it's very much based on whether that person enjoys it or not. But can you be of the opinion that certain movies and TV shows are just good and some are worse, and it doesn't matter what their subjective opinion are?
No.
What the opinion is?
No, because I don't know. I think everyone's going to enjoy a different thing.
So it depends on what you get out of it?
Yeah. Like, Jonica can't watch half the shit we watch because it's too heavy for her. She'll go and watch her rom-coms, and which they have their place as well. Yeah. But that's just her opinion. Okay. It's art. Art's so subjective. Like,
true. But do you not think some art is objectively better than other?
But that's like my opinion.
A 6-year-old drawn with some crayons and a piece of paper, you can't compare that to Van Gogh.
But to a father or a mother, that's beautiful. That's their child's artwork.
I think objectively there's a line between good art and bad art. Like,
who gets to decide that?
Me. I mean, I think objectively there is a line, and I don't know what that's influenced by, because it can't just be influenced by effort, but maybe a mixture between effort and talent mixtured into one can make that objective thing. But then you look at things like, what makes Van Gogh amazing? Like, what makes the Mona Lisa so great? Is it at the point because it was painted so well? There's been paintings that have been painted better than the Mona Lisa. It's historical standing in time.
Context
that has
as well, isn't it? Yeah, there's so many factors.
I don't know.
It's not a yes or no question, is it?
I think there's an objectivity to it. I was going to ask, so one thing we do, or we have done on the podcast so far, is we ask people how obviously they got into the industry. I want you to kind of expand on, like, how exactly, you said you were doing plays at school. Mm-hmm. How did you go about getting an agent? How did you go about getting your first few roles, and what did that look like?
Do you want me to be super honest?
Yeah.
Okay, so I do the school productions.
Okay.
And I was very outgoing, and I was a bit of a smart ass with the teachers, but had that kind of like fun relationship.
Okay.
Even to the point where they named an award after me for the school. Like, 'cause they always gave like
An award?
Yeah, so that was called the inaugural Cassandra Patman Award.
Okay.
And it was given to like the annoying but fun. I'm gonna say it was fun. Person in a play. So there was always like, I can't even think of what the other awards were, but they were like genuine ones. But they created that, so it was always something that interested me. And then when I finished year 12, I put in an application to VCA, which is a school in Melbourne, Performing Arts University. And then just before my audition, my high school boyfriend broke up with me.
Okay.
And obviously when you're 18, it's the worst thing in the world.
It literally is, yeah. Nothing worse.
Ruined my life. So I didn't go to the audition.
Just make sure you're speaking like into the mic as well. Just have it facing you.
Am I not?
Just like the actual centre of it.
La la la
Yeah,
la.
yeah.
And then I went into a full-time job and was just working, and I did a little bit of traveling and just, I guess, living a normal life.
Okay.
And then I went to LA on holiday.
What age were you at this point?
19?
Okay.
20. I was 20.
20, okay.
Yeah. And, you know, being around movie land, I guess, it was kind of a bit inspiring. And I thought, shit, like, it was always something I wanted to do. Why didn't I do it? So I applied for a course in Melbourne and got in and saved my ass off to pay it off.
It's
And
expensive.
that course was about, it was I think 11 grand. But if you paid it in full, you got it like 10% off or something like that.
And what does that course actually look like?
So that was at TAFTA. That was the full-time course. And that was 3 days a week, 9 to 5.
Okay.
In Brunswick. And we did a range of things. We do voice, we do movement. We had different teachers come in. We had workshops. We had casting directors.
Was it worth it?
It was. For where I was at that time, no real experience. It was what I needed. And then to finish off that course, we did show reels, which then got sent out with our headshots to agents all around the country.
Okay.
And then from that, Rob was interested in me. So he reached out and we had some chats, and then I signed on with him.
And what does that look like, signing on with an agent? Do they get a cut of every payday that you get?
If I do the work through them.
And how much is the percentage?
It depends on...
And I'm assuming you can't divulge exactly how much your agent gets.
Yeah, it's percentages, but there's so many factors that come into it. Like, you know, different mediums, like TV will be different to film, which will be different to an ad, which will be different to this.
So for someone who hasn't done acting before, one route into it and the route that you took in that particular session was to do that course.
Yes, but that's not the only way to do it.
What other ways would there be to break in? Say you didn't have that money there.
I mean,
you couldn't pay it
there's
off.
so many free resources on the internet.
Yep.
I mean, I personally found working with teachers to be better because you get in-person feedback right on the spot. But just filming scenes, putting scenes down, like you can send stuff to agents and casting directors yourself. But it's also not the be-all, end-all. Like, I've done a lot of stuff without my agent that didn't get through him. It was through word of mouth and who you know and stuff. And you can still get on a massive show without an agent. It just...
How would you get on a massive show without an
I mean,
agent?
it's very hard, but it's not an impossibility.
Okay.
Like, there's open casting calls. You can have a Casting Networks account or a Showcast account without an agent. It's just having an agent will open you up to different opportunities. And Rob sees a lot of stuff that I don't get to see because it goes through all the agents.
Do you need to pay him a flat fee every year?
No.
So he's just your agent.
He only gets paid if I get paid.
Only gets paid if you get paid.
So
it seems like a win-win. Someone that helps you and you help them.
well, it means like it's legit, you know. Like, that's why if an agent is saying, well, no, it's going to cost you $1,000 to be on my books, it's a bit like, okay.
There's one I went for when I got here. This was last month, and I done extra work in Scotland for like BBC dramas and stuff. And I went to see about one down here in Melbourne, and I went in and I was speaking to this guy, and there was just something about him. I feel as if I'm a pretty good judge of character.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can just tell that there's like gears turning behind the eyes.
Yeah.
and he just fit that like stereotypical like slimy
Yeah.
greaseball like casting agent, and there was just something off about him, and he tried to get me to pay $300 on the spot, and it was the way he went about it as well.
Yeah.
So he was like, yep, so we're going to do that for your cards. Here's a piece of paper there. There's a pen. Sign.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Just be a
I
bit
can
wary
tell
about
that
stuff
he's
like that.
manipulated that situation to try get me to pay that on the spot.
Yeah. And like,
And there's just something that felt off about it.
there's a lot of people who they don't know and they'll just sign away. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like there's a lot of, so there's another platform called Star Now,
Okay.
which is just another casting platform. A lot of students will use that to cast their short films and stuff. And that's another one you got to be really careful on. Sorry. Where like you might see a paid job, but it looks like it's a lot of money. Like it might be $500 for an ad, and like who doesn't want $500?
Yeah.
But really, if that was through the correct route, through an agent or whatever, you should be getting a lot more than that. But people don't see it that way. They're just like, wow, $500, like, and I get to act, like that's awesome. And then you might get locked into a contract with that company where you're stuck. And say it's a mattress company, and then eventually you do get an agent, and another opportunity with another mattress company comes up. You've just fucked yourself because you've already done this ad for $500, but they're going to offer to pay $10,000 for this ad.
Okay.
So there's so many like legal things you have to be careful of, and that's one good reason to have an agent.
I was going to say, so what other things you need to be careful of coming into the industry? So you need to be careful of dodgy agents and what you sign and stuff, but what else do you need to be kind of aware of?
Dodgy directors. Like there are some really bad people out there.
In terms of like the Me Too sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, it is the kind of industry where people are willing to do a lot to get in.
And the people at the top can be predatory if
Yeah.
they need to be.
I've never really experienced anything like that.
Have you heard of people maybe doing things to get roles?
I've heard like stories, but it's through the grapevine. No one directly that I know. I think at least the people I know have their heads screwed on very well.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of my people through courses and classwork, and they're being taught the correct information and the safe routes to take to get places.
How much do you reckon of Hollywood's current stars had to go through a process like that?
Oh, I don't even want to think
Like,
about it.
fucked their way to the top, in no other words.
I like to think the current generation that's coming through is not dealing with that, especially after the Me Too movement.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, if we're looking back 20 years, 30 years,
Probably a lot,
a
right?
lot of them, yeah.
Is there, I'm just thinking of back of the way to get into acting as a profession. You spoke about your course, you spoke about networking and stuff. What do you think about using social media, like TikTok and stuff, as a way to get acting roles?
I think that
Is it viable?
for sure. And I've heard lots of people, you know, recommending it. I've had so many people say to me, you should start a TikTok. And there's no judgment of anyone who does take that route to get into it. It's just not something I want to do. I don't find it enjoyable. But, I mean, digital media and social networks and just computers in general, it's the way the future's been going. Like, it's the way we are going. So it definitely has its place. And it's something we've learnt as well. You know, if there's two people who are both equally talented and they both look the part for the role, casting directors will then go to social networks.
Really?
And be like, okay, well, she's got 1,000 followers and she's got 20,000 followers. So we're going to go with her because that's already giving us more.
So they want the clout and the reach from that person's following.
Yeah.
I never knew that would be so applicable. I thought they would go based on what their value was as an actor.
I think a lot of people I've spoken to about it don't agree with it and have said they'll try and avoid that. But when it comes to, like, there's so much money in that industry. When people are putting that much money in, they want the biggest return they can get. So,
Okay, and if you've got followers that you can attract your attention towards that.
you know, like if there's a TikTok star who teenage girls are in love with and he's the best looking guy at the moment, like that's going to bring heaps more people in to see this rather than a nobody that...
I don't know anything about this, but see the TV show Euphoria? Mm-hmm. It strikes me as if like all of the people acting on that were like TikTok stars. Is that got any truth to it whatsoever, or are they just
I don't think so.
all people that didn't use TikTok?
Like Zendaya,
Okay.
very famous actress. She's
She's massive,
No, I think some of the actors in that were people off the street kind of
Really?
casting. Some of them, like, there is a nepotism baby in there. What's her name? Maud Apatow.
Judd Apatow? Okay.
His daughter's in there, and Leslie Mann, that's his wife.
Okay.
But yeah, no, there wasn't any that I was aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's break out of the acting conversation for a second.
Yeah.
Outside of that as a professional ambition, what other stuff interests you?
Well, like, I love movies, but I guess that leads to that. Music.
Music?
Love my music. Play it around the house all the time.
I've been introduced to a band called Sly Withers, which I'd never heard about before I met Cassie, but they're just, how do you describe them? Kind of like Blink-182, early 2000s punk rock sort of stuff,
they're
right?
a really cool band from Perth.
And something else you do is Pilates.
I do like my Pilates.
How long have you been doing that for?
I started doing it in 2020.
Okay.
2021. During the lockdowns, I kind of found a love for it.
And what was that through? Just YouTube videos?
Yeah, mainly. I was doing an online workout program, and they had a heap of like HIIT and cardio and Pilates and boxing and all these different kinds of videos, and I just always felt drawn to the Pilates ones.
Why?
I mean, Pilates can be very strenuous. Like, we did a Pilates class the other day. You were
We done a
sweating your ass off.
We done a hot Pilates class within a Pilates studio.
Like, it's not easy.
Oh, it's not easy. It was pulling different muscles in my ass that I never even felt. But I didn't even know that these muscles were here and they were getting strained. Like, I was puffed by the end of it. Yeah, it was hard.
But I've never found it so hard that I didn't want to do it. Like running, for instance, it gets to a point where I'm like, I'm just not enjoying this anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas Pilates is the kind of difficult that I like to push through and see if I can hold the plank longer or see if I can do 10 more squats. So.
And it's never too long as well, right? They kind of go up to a maximum of around an hour.
Yeah, I'll usually do about 30 to 40 minutes. I only did 20 today because I was a bit tired. Started raining. But
30 to 40.
Yeah, somewhere in that region.
I'm kind of new to Melbourne and Australia. But in the UK, from what I know, Pilates isn't really a thing. People don't really do it. It's very much like girls are either, or women are either the gym or maybe yoga or dancing or something like that. Pilates isn't really a thing. Is it becoming more popular in Australia? Because I've got a theory that 2023 is going to be the year of women doing Pilates and yoga, and that's going to be like the hot thing.
But I feel like it's already already the hot thing.
But I don't think it is in the UK. I think it's very much like gym girls. Like, that's what people see on social media.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to switch from that to like Pilates. Like, I think it's going to become the Pilates fad over the next year or two.
I don't know. I guess it's all comes.
Is it already a thing? Like, do you see it across social media and stuff?
But that's my algorithm.
Okay, you're stuck in that loop now.
Yeah. I don't know. I know a big mix of gym girls and Pilates girls, but it's definitely like, I don't want to say it's on the rise, like it's an up and coming thing. It's here, but no, I'm definitely seeing and hearing more of my friends are doing it. So
it's definitely become more popular. Like, I've never seen so many studios.
It's just
that
fun.
I do see in Melbourne. It is good.
It's such a warm and welcoming environment.
Having done one class, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
We have to do a reformer class on the board.
Okay.
That'll be lots of fun.
That'll test me. So Pilates was one thing, but another thing I want to discuss, we mentioned at the start of the episode, is you travelling Europe.
Yeah, my white girl holiday.
Yeah, it's your white girl holiday, but for anyone who's from the UK or Europe, it's very much just like what you do as well. What was your favourite part about it? About the experience? Not country, but in terms of the experience itself.
I guess like the people I met. I went by myself.
Okay.
Which was
so solo travelling as a woman halfway across the world.
On a one-way ticket.
On a one-way ticket?
Yeah.
Okay. Bold.
It was getting on the plane. No, walking through like the departure gates was the most daunting thing I've ever done. Because I left my family and my best friends on the other side.
What was the emotion like at that point?
On the lead up, was going through a real weird depressive episode. Like, I couldn't physically do anything because I was moving out of my apartment and packing for Europe.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I remember coming home one night and I felt like a Sims character, like just kept cancelling actions. Like I couldn't shower, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything. And then the day I left, I was really hungover and my mum was crying and my best friends were crying. My dad was just standing there. And I remember thinking...
So how would you frame that to them? How'd you frame that? Obviously, you'd only bought a one-way ticket, but you framed it as in, I'm not coming back again? What was their understanding?
No one knew. Everyone kept saying I was going to meet someone and fall in love, or I was going to come back and move to Sydney.
Okay.
I did neither of those things. I bought my ticket. It was something I'd already talked about. And then I was at a party and I was really bored and I was drunk and I brought my ticket just there at the party.
Damn.
Yeah. And then I had to like message him. I was like, okay, I've actually done it. I leave in 3 months. I think everyone was really excited for me. I mean, there was the typical nerves. My dad was telling me not to use the Wi-Fi at airports because that's how people will hack your phone. Yeah.
That's how they get you.
But no, I think the overall thing was excitement.
Okay.
They knew that I knew people over there.
Yep.
So I did have somewhere to go if everything turned to shit. And it did. But no, I think it was excitement. I do remember when I was like at the airport leaving saying, I'm not dying. Like I'm coming back. Like my stuff's here. At the very least, I have to get my stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to be in Australia for summer. So if I was going to move, I was still going to come back to be here for this lovely 15-degree weather that we're having here today.
It's very reminiscent of Glasgow outside today. It's lovely. I'm in my prime right now.
I'm freezing.
So how long were you over in Europe for in
3
total?
months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk me through the route a little bit.
I didn't have a plan.
And where'd you go?
The only thing I knew was I had Sail Croatia.
Okay.
Oh, the typical white girl thing. I had that booked in August.
Okay.
So I landed in June, start of June.
Yep.
And I knew I had Sail Croatia start of August. And everything in between and after was just winging it.
Yeah.
I had a rough idea of I wanted to go up through the UK and then I wanted to come down through France, down like the Bordeaux side.
Yep.
Into like Spain and Portugal and then up through the other side of France. And I wanted to just like awkwardly zigzag. But then I ended up spending 5 weeks in the UK.
Mainly between, you were in London for a while?
No, I didn't spend that much time in London because I'd been there before. I spent over a week in Manchester.
Okay. Strange one to spend a week
I know, but I loved it there. I also had a friend there, so I was staying with her.
Okay.
So while I tried to figure out what I was doing, I forgot about currency conversion the first couple of weeks I was there. So I was just tapping my card, like everything was so cheap, and then remembering that I had to double it. But I did a festival in my first week.
Was that Boardmasters?
No, it was Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight, okay.
Yeah.
It was something around that area.
Yeah. And then I had a friend I wanted to visit in the middle of the UK, or in Nottingham. Mm-hmm. And then I was in Liverpool for almost a week, Manchester, went up to Scotland, Ireland. And then my friends were like, can you please go to a coastline? You're in Europe over summer. We want to see a nice beach. And we're just seeing grey skies and you're wearing jumpers and jeans. And so then, I went to France.
Can I ask, did you notice any difference in the people that you met in the UK hostels in comparison to the ones in mainland Europe? Or was it very much just hostel people in general?
No, I think if we consider Europe, not the UK, Europe.
I mean, it's no longer in the European Union, so
yeah. I think it was a bit more loose.
In the UK?
No, in Europe.
Okay.
But it was also hotter over there. You've just got...
People were in party mode.
Yeah. But it also depends on the hostel you stay in. I had some where it was just me and middle-aged people in a room, and then there's others where it was just party. But it also depended on my vibe. I didn't party as much as I thought I would. I still did my fair share, but being a solo female does kind of give a bit of...
Did you have your wits about you?
I think so. I got my head screwed on. I mean, I do stupid stuff, I'll admit that, but I'm not an idiot.
Okay. So what was your favourite part about it then?
I liked
the whole experience.
The time to myself.
Time to yourself?
It was so lonely, and it made me realize life is meant to be shared, not necessarily with a partner, but just with people. But that could also be, you know, a week with people and then 3 days to yourself. But sharing experiences, I think, there was some lonely times. But
So
it's
it's
also
that time where you're having dinner by yourself, you're traveling a different country,
Yeah.
on a train, not seen anyone for a few days, not spoke
Yeah.
to anyone.
you know,
So
you
it was a
don't
kind
have
of
any-
silver lining teaching from that you took from it the most.
Yeah, but it also then made me realize that I do enjoy my own company, and you know, I had less of a FOMO attitude when I got back. And you know, on a night out, if I wasn't feeling it, I wouldn't force myself to stay out. Be like, I'm just gonna go home by myself and just eat chips in bed or something. Like, yeah, I learned to enjoy my own company a bit more, I think.
Okay. And what would you say? So you said that at the end, it was a hard experience before you came back.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many different things that happened. I mean, nothing's ever going to go to plan when traveling, but like people had passed away back home and I missed out on things there. And like people, a close friend's mum had been diagnosed with cancer, and like just little things like that. And then I got really sick and ended up in the hospital, and, you know, just being away from your bed, and then just living out of a bag can be so tiring.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and especially, like, even though I was open to the idea of the one-way ticket and not coming back, unless you've really got a plan, you're not going to do that. Like, unless I thought, okay, I want to move to London, I was never really set on that. So I was always just constantly on the move. And then, yeah, I was in Greece, and there was just this one night where some really not cool stuff happened, and I lost my phone as well. And I just had a mental breakdown. And oh my God, I've never cried that much in my life. I was stuck in Mykonos. I missed my ferry. Thankfully, I had my laptop. And yeah, my dad. I already had a flight booked. I was supposed to come home 2 weeks later, but Dad, he booked me a flight home.
To come home as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, and then that flight was overbooked. And I had to stay for a few more days. Oh, it was a terrible couple of days. But I'm glad that happened, because it gave me a day or two in Athens to explore, which I loved Athens.
Yeah.
And it didn't end my trip on a low. Like, I met some really cool people, still had a great time, and didn't come home just with that thought. It ended on a high. So, yeah, it was amazing. Like, there's so many things that...
Do you regret it at all?
No. There's purchases I regret. Because I'm like, well, that was stupid money spent. Like, a bag that broke the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
And as shit as some of the stuff that happened was, it was all a learning experience, and it's definitely changed who I am today, but I think for the better. So, like I say I go to Europe and it sounds like the most white girl thing ever, but it wasn't like...
It's not. I think it just has that stereotype, but
Yeah.
traveling's probably one of the most formative experiences you can have.
For sure.
I think in terms of developing your character, your comfortability with yourself, who you are, how you learn and how you adapt to new experiences. Like, it's something I recommend to everyone.
Yeah.
To everyone.
And I know a lot of friends who couldn't have done it by themselves. And like, you know, people will go do tours and stuff, and I think that's amazing as well. But the whole doing it by myself, and I'd wake up and think, okay, where do I want to go today?
Yeah.
Or I really like this place, I'm going to stay here for a couple more days. Or I met this person, they live in this country, I'm going to go visit them. It was just...
What do you think it is about you as a person that made you okay with, one, taking that big of a risk, and then two, just being comfortable and doing it yourself when other people can't?
I think it's because I'm an only child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's changed your comfortability and your confidence with things?
Yeah.
How does that speak to the boldness of that decision to book that one-way flight?
I just think growing up, I was always treated like an adult.
Okay.
Like, my relationship with my parents was a lot more friends rather than parent-child.
Okay.
So that already gave me confidence in myself that I'd been treated as a person for most of my life. And then I'm also just a really impulsive person. Like, when I get stuck on an idea, I said it to you earlier, like, I have this thing I want to do at the moment. I'm like, just sit on it for a few days, because sometimes do regret things because as soon as I have an idea, I need to do it.
I don't think all impulsivity is bad. And I think your 20s are that age where you can make these decisions.
For sure.
And traveling halfway across the world, I can speak from experience. Like, it's a lot of fun and it's really interesting. And I don't know that I'm always going to have it figured out. But see, if you're somewhat hardworking and you're willing to learn, you're willing to adapt, you can get by almost anywhere.
I think knowing as well that I had a great support network, that if everything did turn to shit, it was only a
That's the thing as well, is like if you come from a loving family.
Yeah.
And you got friends.
Yeah.
If everything goes to shit and you lose all your money and you get no possessions left, you got a loving family, you can start again.
Well, that's what I did. Like, I didn't have a house when I got back. I couch surfed for 2 months till I found somewhere to live. Like, everything always works out, you know?
Okay. One thing that we always finish on with a podcast is character. Character. So I want to know one thing that made you a really good couch surfer.
Okay.
And one thing that made you a bad couch surfer. And you need to be as honest as possible. What made you a good guest?
I think a good guest. I'm very grateful and would show that through, cleaning up after myself and buying dinners, and I, brought them a present at the end, and just constantly reminding, and also not trying to take over the space too much, and realizing, like, I left my whole wardrobe in my car and would go down every day and get the clothes I needed rather than, bringing it up and taking over the space. Although if they ever watch this towards the end, I did, and I do apologize. But
sorry, guys. So that made you a good guest, was that appreciation that you showed to them?
Yeah, because I truly was so grateful for what they did.
Why did they take you in?
Well, I was living there before I left.
Okay. Paying?
So, yeah, I was renting there.
Okay.
Moved out, a girl took my room, and then when I came back,
they were okay with you couch surfing?
They just love me.
Awesome people.
Yes.
And what was one thing that made you a bad house guest that you could do better on?
I don't know who did better on it, but
you gotta be honest.
I know. I feel like I started drama.
Okay.
Because it wasn't the most tidiest house.
Okay.
It was quite gross.
Yeah.
And I feel like possibly I started a couple of fights because I'd mentioned to someone how dirty it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would start a fight in the group chat because they'll be like, well, why isn't everyone pulling their weight? Like, they wouldn't bring me into it. I was out of it. It was all their drama. But I remember feeling like,
oh, shit, well,
I've started this, but also they need this. So maybe it made me a good guest.
I mean, it's a hard situation to navigate.
Because
on one
case, my place.
Yeah, it's not your place. You should have no say in it whatsoever.
But also,
no one wants to live in it.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, it wasn't just messy. It was like,
yeah, and I've seen it.
Yeah,
it was horrible. Anyways, let's finish on that. Have you got anything to say to the 20 people listening?
No. Thank you for listening. Can we hear your Australian accent? We talked about accents.
A whippersnapper.